From the Schmoes Know Network Studios in Los Angeles, California, it's time for Profiles with your hosts, Alicia Malone and Scott Mantz.
Hello, Schmoville! Welcome to episode 13 of Profiles. And boy, this is really going to be a special show because we just literally have topped ourselves. We have topped ourselves with our profiles on Christopher Nolan. Now, as you know, if you've been watching Profiles, and we know you have. You better. We've been having our guests call in, or we've been calling them, but unprecedented. We sat down with the man himself to speak with Christopher Nolan about his career, about his brand new film Interstellar, which we are going to talk about on Profiles today.
And just for Profiles, we sat down with him just for this show specifically.
And Paramount Pictures, who arranged the interview for us, the other interviews were canceled or time was cut down so we could speak with him. So this is a very big deal, we have to say. Big deal. But let's just get right into what it is about Christopher Nolan's movies. I mean, in the last, 15 years, 16 years, he's just been topping himself with each passing film.
Yeah, I love how, he started in the indie world, and now that he's graduated from the tadpoles to the tentpoles, he hasn't lost that art house aesthetic. He makes really intelligent movies. And I think whether you agree with them, or you don't agree with them, you get them, you don't get them, you like them, you don't like them, regardless, he gives you something to talk about when you leave the cinema, and that for me is so important. It's not mindless blockbuster.
He doesn't cater to his audience. He expects the audience to rise to his level with cerebral films, challenging films, often non-linear films.
Yeah, and playing with the perception of time.
And memory. And he has never, like you said, he never lost touch of his indie roots. And no matter how many times you see his movies, and you do need to see them over and over again, you find something new with each passing film.
That's his trick. That's his magic trick, is that you have to go to see his films multiple times in the cinema, as I say, because he does create cinematic experiences that you need to see on a giant screen. I also love his cinematography. He has such a great eye. Great eye.
Wally Pfister, 7-time collaborator on his movies, and his dedication to the medium of film.
Film preservation.
And shooting in an IMAX cameras.
Also pushing the technology.
I mean, 3D is just not his thing. And
I like that.
I like that. We like that a lot because he feels that when you wear the 3D glasses, among other things, wearing the 3D glasses takes away from the shared communal experience of going to the movies.
I always feel that. I always feel like you're just one step away from the screen. You can't get as immersed into it, even though that's what it's supposed to do.
But I will take a movie in IMAX over a movie that's in 3D any day, especially when they are directed by Christopher Nolan.
And we will talk more about IMAX and film versus digital and why that is so important later on. But right now, let's get stuck into his wonderful life. With It's a Wonderful Life.
Christopher Jonathan James Nolan was born on July 30th, 1970 in London, England. At the age of 7, Nolan began making short films with his action figures on his father's Super 8 camera. He later read English literature at University College London, a school he chose specifically for its filmmaking facilities. It was there that he became the president of the Union's Film Society and met his future wife and producer, Emma Thomas. Together, they produced their own 16mm films over the summers with the money they earned from screening classic movies during the school year. In 1998, Nolan made his feature directorial debut with Following, which he shot with friends on a $6,000 budget. But it was his groundbreaking follow-up from 2000 that really signaled his arrival as a trailblazing visionary, the mind-bending thriller Memento, which became a critical and box office success. In the years since, Christopher Nolan has become one of the most successful and highly regarded filmmakers of the 21st century, and his 8 films together have grossed more than $3.5 billion worldwide. Nolan has been nominated for 3 Academy Awards as a producer and a writer, but he is yet to be nominated for an Oscar for Best Director.
Hard to believe that.
Hard to believe. And, he just makes movies that are just too good. He's just like, look at Kubrick.
Too complex.
Look at Hitchcock.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Orson Welles. Now, listen, Christopher Nolan, he's like in his early 40s. Still got a whole career ahead of him. I have a feeling he'll be nominated for Best Director really soon. And we should point out that when we're going through our Fast Five, that when we start talking about Interstellar, we are not ranking Interstellar because right before we did It's a Wonderful Life, we pointed out how you have to see his movies over and over again.
Yeah.
And you also need perspective and some time to sort of digest what you've seen. And it's just too premature to A, rank it, and B, talk too much about it because we don't want to give away any plot points or anything like that. We don't want to ruin it for everyone. So we're appealing to our profilers in Schmoville to let us know where you think Interstellar will rank on your top 5 when you see the movie.
It. Yeah, because one thing before we saw the film, they said, please do not spoil the movie. And they said from Christopher Nolan, he is really saying, please do not spoil the movie for anyone. So we don't want to do that. So don't worry, when you watch this and we talk about Interstellar later on, we won't spoil anything. But what was your first blood?
My first blood was probably the same as yours.
Memento?
Yes. Now, I saw this movie when it came out on March 16th, 2001. It actually came out overseas. I mean, just the dates.
It's amazing.
I mean, it's like I'm the Rain Man of movie dates.
You
but
are.
This movie did come out overseas in 2000. It played at Sundance in January 2001. Heard all about it. People were raving about it. Didn't see it at Sundance. So when it came out, I went to the Sunset 5 Theater, a famous theater at the corner of Sunset Boulevard and Crescent Heights.
Yes.
Went to like a 3:30 show. I did not understand what I just saw. I went to the bathroom, waited 20 minutes until I heard the next show go in.
Sneaky.
I snuck back in to see it again, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. The color sequences are in reverse. The black and white are going forward, and at the end, it all
which is the middle.
comes together. Yes, the end of the film is your midpoint. What?
It's incredible, that movie. I saw it on VHS. I think this was before the time of DVDs. And Guy Pearce, he wasn't that well known over here in America, but in Australia, he was a huge star. He'd been in things like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. So I saw his face on the box of the VHS, and I said, I've got to see this new Guy Pearce movie. I'd obviously never heard of Christopher Nolan, and I watched it and I was blown away by the structure. It's one of the most inventive films I have ever seen, one of the most inventive indies I have ever seen, and I had to watch it again straight away just to figure it out.
Sure.
Loved that movie, and we'll talk more about that
It's
later
definitely
on.
one of the best independent films ever made. But when it comes to Fast Five, what do we got at Fast Five?
Number 5?
Why do we false? So that we can learn to pick ourselves up.
When it is done, and Gotham is ashes, then you have my permission to die.
The
Batman
Dark Knight
Begins.
Rises. Wait a minute here.
What?
Wait, I said The Dark Knight Rises.
Batman Begins.
So wait, you think Batman Begins is number 5? I
Yeah.
think The Dark Knight Rises is number 5.
No, Batman Begins.
This is unprecedented in Profiles history. We have a different picks for a number in our Fast
We're
Five.
going to have to agree to disagree because Batman Begins is my favorite of the trilogy, and I will tell you why.
Tell me why.
Because this is the first superhero movie that ever made sense to me. It is so grounded in reality. It is so smart. You know, Batman and Robin came out, 1997?
97.
And that was full of cheesy villains and those one-liners and the nipples on the bat suit.
It's bad.
Batman had become a joke, and I was never into the comic books, and so I didn't get these comic book movies. I thought, yeah, they're cool, but I don't understand them. When I saw Batman Begins, it blew my mind. Just the way that you understood the character of Bruce Wayne, you understood the character of Batman, the way Christian Bale plays multiple characters. He plays Bruce Wayne in private, Bruce Wayne in public, the Playboy image that he has to project, and then Batman himself, the casting, Gary Oldman, Michael Caine. Why do we fall, sir? I can't do a Michael Caine voice, but you know,
it's close.
All about the search for a father figure and how it was about fear and confronting the fear and becoming the fear. Plus, just the way he explained the Batmobile, the tumbler, the bat suit, and even the bat signal. I really love this film. The pacing is brilliant, so that's why I love Batman Begins.
Batman Begins, released on June 15th, 2005, nominated for 1 Academy Award, cinematography, Wally Pfister, who he worked with Nolan 7 times. And listen, I love Batman Begins. When it came out, I thought it was the most grounded and realistic superhero comic book movie I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
Up to that point, the one that I liked the most was Spider-Man 2, because it was more about Peter Parker than it was about Spider-Man. Well, Batman Begins was more about Bruce Wayne than it was about Batman. You don't see Batman until more than an hour into the film. And this was the Batman film that the fans have really been waiting for. It was dark, it was grounded in reality, and it was so grounded, especially when they depicted Bruce Wayne as this playboy, that the producers of the James Bond series, the Broccoli's, saw Batman Begins, and they said, the way they just rebooted Batman is the way we need to reboot James Bond. And the following year, they did that with Casino Royale.
Yes.
Because it was more grounded, more realistic, darker. And the other thing about the look of Batman Begins, I noticed while we were doing our research on the show that Nolan always shows movies to his cast and crew to kind of get a feel, a vibe, not copying it exactly, but just getting a vibe so that they can capture it. So he showed the cast and crew for Batman Begins, he showed them Blade Runner.
Perfect.
And he said, this is what I want Batman to look like, and he did.
Yeah, Batman Begins was so successful. It revitalized the superhero genre, and I think it's responsible for many of these superhero films we see nowadays. I still enjoy watching it. That score is brilliant. Yeah, it's
and
so
then
good.
Michael Caine, who Nolan
Michael
calls his good luck charm, because he's so good with no apparent effort, and he sets a standard for everyone else.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
Well, this is why The Dark Knight Rises is
give it to me.
My personal favorite of the Dark Knight trilogy. Okay, Dark Knight Rises came out on July 20, 2012. I thought it was the biggest, boldest, and most ambitious of all the Batman films, and it was more of an ensemble. Batman he's hardly in it after he gets his back broken by Bane, which was terrifying. He's not in it that much. He literally has to heal and claw his way back to the top and earn his heroism. And I loved it so much that when I wrote my original review a couple years ago, I said The Dark Knight Rises succeeds as an epic triumph that scales the rare heights of The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, making it the crowning achievement of the Batman trilogy and the biggest, best, most exciting Batman of them all. And it features a villain who is a terrorist, a story that's set during an economic crisis, and images of mass destruction that seem all too real in a post 9/11 world. That's a far cry from the vibrant fun of the Avengers.
I agree. It definitely touches on terrorism. I saw shades of the economic crisis in there. That's what I like about this trilogy of films, is that they stand for so much more.
Right.
And they're so clever, the way they're constructed, written, the characters. It's a character study more than anything.
It's definitely a character study. I mean, these films are about the characters more than they're about the heroes.
And then they have the great action scenes.
The action scene, and they're so proficiently made. The production values of all of his films are just really, really incredible.
Like The Dark Knight Rises with that.
Yeah, right. Yes,
chanting.
It's so epic. But now, when Nolan was doing his Batman films, his Dark Knight trilogy, he had a one-word theme for each of the films. You touched on Batman Begins being about
fear,
and The Dark Knight was about
chaos,
and The Dark Knight Rises was about
pain.
Oh boy, do you feel Bruce Wayne's pain in this movie. Unbelievable film. And one thing to point out about The Dark Knight Rises is, now after The Dark Knight, after Heath Ledger passed away, Christopher Nolan made a conscious decision that he was not going to mention the Joker, show flashbacks with the Joker in it, no mention at all of the Joker. So watching The Dark Knight Rises, obviously we know why he didn't go there at all with Heath Ledger, and it was a classy decision. It was the right decision to make. But just for the sake of the film world, when Bane frees all the criminals from the Arkham Asylum, and you see the Scarecrow, you see Cillian Murphy, he's been a mainstay for all 3 films, which is actually pretty cool.
It's very cool.
But where's the Joker?
Did he escape?
Did he escape? Is he
out in the
out
world?
there? It's a chilling thought that the Joker is back out there. Now, granted, we know why he didn't go there, but it is still a great thing to just sort of ponder that the Joker's still out there. And how great is the ending for this film?
Oh, yes.
Oh, come on.
I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Robin.
Robin.
You should use your real name,
You're
Robin.
Robin. Everyone's like, what? Oh, it was so great.
And when
what a
I
great
saw
ending.
Dark Knight Rises, I went to the cinema and I saw the trilogy back to back, and they played Dark Knight Rises at the end. That was a brilliant way to spend 6 or 7 hours. One only misstep in Batman Begins, Katie Holmes.
Oh, well,
They
yeah,
fixed that.
we don't have to go there with Katie Holmes. But one thing I did happen to say about Batman Begins in my original review is that by relying on the tone set by comic book classics like The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One, the first part of the story is so riveting you don't even realize that Batman doesn't make his first appearance till over an hour into the film. And boy, it's just so interesting to just like go back and see my original thoughts and how they still stand because these movies are
Good.
so great.
Yes. Well, Joshua Willingham, who is our profiler.
Yay, Joshua.
He runs our Profiles SK Twitter, and we're so grateful for that. He likes Batman Begins. He says, from the cinematography to the acting and the script, Nolan delivered a game-changing comic book film. He changed the way to make a superhero film by making it more realistic and darker. I think Nolan is the first director to get Batman right by giving Bruce Wayne a moral compass that the audience understands.
True.
He alone made Batman a deeper, more relatable character than any other live-action film had done before.
Well, our profiler, Cole Boone,
Cole.
awesome profiler. Batman Begins may be the greatest superhero origin story put to screen, and in Nolan's hands, he made it something that none of us could ever have imagined. So many people thought that Batman was dead after the release of Batman and Robin in 1997.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. We agree. But Nolan made Batman a character you could truly empathize with and care about once again. Batman Begins has superb acting, great dialogue, beautiful cinematography, and precise, well-thought direction by the great Christopher Nolan. It set up the Dark Knight trilogy with perfection.
Another great profiler, Maxence Vincent. He likes The Dark Knight Rises.
Yay!
Says it's dark, thrilling, and really good. Christian Bale is at the top of his form as Batman. Tom Hardy is excellent as Bane. The IMAX imagery is fantastic. Nolan knows how to open up the IMAX screen at a perfect spot. The airplane scene got me hooked.
Yeah.
Just right until the end. This movie proves that Christopher Nolan is an amazing director, and Wally Pfister knows how to work with IMAX.
And Adam Johnson also loved The Dark Knight Rises, saying it is easily the best finale to a trilogy since Return of the Jedi. Okay, with such a great villain in Bane, and a plot largely inspired by Dickens. This is interesting. Check this out. Above all, though, Rises shows that the trilogy was never about Batman. It was about Bruce Wayne, about triumphing over loss and obstacles, about rising out of the darkness to be victorious. Love for his city, despite its corruption, saves Gotham from the League of Shadows, evil, and vengeance. And when the Batman ultimately sacrifices himself to save his city and Bruce begins life anew, as Alfred had dreamed, it is certainly, quote, a far, far better thing than he has ever done before. It is a far, far better resting place that he goes to than he has ever known.
It's poetic.
Whoa, quoting Dickens. Way to go, Adam Johnson.
Oh, I love our profilers. They are so smart.
They're so smart. They're
So
great film
smart.
critics.
Now, my right stuff, and I think it's really apt that we have this segment called The Right Stuff, and we'll get into that later on.
Yes.
But my right stuff actually comes from The Dark Knight Rises.
Surprising.
One of my favorite scenes in a Christopher Nolan movie is the football scene in Dark Knight Rises, because that is so eerie and it just has that overtone of terrorism on this really wholesome, good American pastime, this football match. You've got that little kid singing the anthem and then Bane off to the side. He has a lovely voice.
Yeah, the city is yours.
And then that moment when the guy has the football, he's running, and he looks behind him, and the whole stadium is gone.
Oh, it's scary. It's scary. You see all the bridges like fall into the river. It's really, really scary. My right stuff does go to The Dark Knight, and it is the scene where the Joker in the truck is trying to get to Harvey Dent. It is such a well-executed like car-truck chase. The pacing when the truck flips over on its top, and the game of chicken that the Joker and Batman play, and the dynamic of their relationship, we'll get to that when we get to The Dark Knight, is really unique and poetic and Shakespearean.
Yeah, they need each other, and they also need to destroy each other.
Exactly. They need each other to survive. One can't live without the other. Dark needs the light.
Yes.
Interesting stuff.
Interesting stuff. And Christopher Nolan, like many of the directors that we profile, have a lot of great details.
Lots of last
and a lot
details.
of great trivia
Yes.
about them.
Hit me up.
So did you know,
Tell me.
apparently, Christopher Nolan does not have an email address.
He doesn't have an email address.
No.
You just got to call him.
Just got to call him.
Or send him a snail
I don't
mail.
even know if he has a cell phone. I'm sure he does.
I'm sure he does. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't.
Maybe
If
he
he doesn't have
doesn't.
email, it doesn't. Well, did you know that had Heath Ledger not died, the storyline for The Dark Knight Rises would have involved the trial of the Joker while Harvey Two-Face Dent went on a crime rampage around Gotham.
Interesting.
That would have been interesting.
Well, did you know that Nolan is so loved at Warner Brothers, where he's made 5 of his 6 big films, that they pay for his office, his assistant, and his other expenses with no obligation, even when he's making a movie at Paramount.
Like Interstellar?
Like Interstellar.
Well.
He still has his office taken care of. That is power.
That is power in Hollywood. Well, did you know that Anne Hathaway, she was cast as the cat? Not Catwoman, because she's never actually called Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises.
Selena.
But she was cast as the Black Cat in Spider-Man 4, which would have been the 4th movie starring Tobey Maguire, directed by Sam Raimi, had that movie actually taken off, and the Vulture would have been the villain, but that movie never got made, so instead Anne Hathaway played Selena Kyle instead.
Another cat.
Another cat.
So did you know
Tell me.
that Christopher Nolan always has a flask of tea with him? He drinks a lot of tea, which is
So British.
very, very English.
So British.
And he always wears similar clothes. He decided that he doesn't want to spend time thinking about what to wear in the morning, so he goes with a dark blazer, a lighter shirt, he wears a waistcoat and a scarf if it's cold, and always has interesting socks. And apparently Brad Gray from Paramount, when he went to visit the set of Interstellar, was like, this is the most well-dressed set I've ever seen.
That is cool. And who else wore the same? What other
Hitchcock.
Director? Hitchcock.
Yeah.
He wore the same thing
He
every
also
day on
drank
set.
tea.
Wow.
It's the secret to
Okay,
success.
that is secret success. Wear the same thing every day and drink tea. Well, let me hit you up with one more. Did you know that in Batman Begins, Anthony Hopkins turned down the part of Alfred?
I didn't know that.
How about that?
How about
I don't know.
that?
Michael Caine rules. That's all I'm going to say.
Michael
Michael
Caine.
Caine rules.
I've got to work on my Michael Caine impression.
Yeah, it sounds good as an
Michael
Australian trying to do your British accent.
Michael Caine.
Oh. Okay, let's go with our Fast Five. Coming in at number 4.
This is always the worst time of night for me. Too late for yesterday, too early for tomorrow.
Insomnia.
Insomnia. Great film. Came out on May 24th, 2002. A remake of the 1997 Norwegian film of the same name starring Stellan Skarsgård. This is a great character-driven film with a morally charged and deeply flawed protagonist. This, when you really think about it, this is Christopher Nolan's Seven.
Yeah. It's also his most straightforward film.
Right.
Although, again, it warps your perception because you feel like you haven't slept when you watch this movie. And I also hadn't slept when I watched this movie the other night. As I told you, I could not sleep. I haven't been able to sleep lately. I've just been thinking too much. And I had about 2 hours sleep, and then I watched Insomnia. And I think that was perfect for my brain at that point.
I'm watching this movie. Watch Al Pacino, so sleep deprived. It just makes you feel exhausted.
Yes.
But yeah, this is definitely a character-driven film, very straightforward by Nolan standards. Cost $46 million to make, up from $4.5 million from his previous film, Memento. So that's a big jump. Starring 3 Oscar winners, Al Pacino, Robin Williams, and Hilary Swank. It grossed $114 million domestically. Takes place in Nightmute, Alaska. Nightmute, get it? The night is on mute because the sun never sets.
Yeah.
Amazing cinematography. The opening credits of this film, while the plane is flying over the glaciers, really sets the stage for this alien world we're going to be in for the next 2 hours in Nightmute. And the
fog scene.
The fog scene. Let's talk about the fog scene.
The fog scene with the shootout. I think he didn't mean to shoot his partner, but in the moment, he did. He reacted in the moment because his partner was going to testify against him with internal affairs back in LA, and he's searching for the killer played by Robin Williams. Accidentally shoots his partner. I'm sure he didn't intend to kill him, but then Robin Williams' character sees that and uses that as blackmail.
But just the way that Pacino's character's name is Will Dormer. So he's dealing with all the stuff back home in L.A. with internal affairs. So now it gets himself into another pickle in Alaska, and the way he tries to cover his tracks, shooting the dog, taking the bullet, and just the way
it's worse and worse.
It just keeps, you're right, it keeps digging himself into a bigger hole. And Hilary Swank's character is this idealistic cop who idolizes Al Pacino until she's onto him.
Yep.
And then I just love the way the movie ends, where she's going to throw the bullet away, and she goes, "I know you didn't mean to do it," and he goes, and he's dying, and his last words are, "Don't lose your way. Just let me sleep." I mean, it's such a great, totally engaging, absorbing, riveting, character-driven movie.
And the reason that Insomnia is so important is because it proved that Christopher Nolan could handle big budget movies, could handle these big stars. Actually, he was really wanting to make this film and he couldn't get a meeting with Warner Brothers, but Steven Soderbergh, who was a huge fan of Memento, he was like, "Leave it with me." He walked across the lot and said, "You would be insane not to meet with this guy." And then Soderbergh came on as a producer along with George Clooney.
Section
They made
8.
that happen. And then from there, I mean, one thing about Christopher Nolan, he is always on time and on budget. So he delivered Insomnia for a pretty small budget. It made a lot of money. From then on, he proved that he could do it, and that's why we get bigger and bigger, and now we have Interstellar.
We have Interstellar. And at the time, back in 2002, my original review said, "Not only is the film an incredibly riveting, intensely paced, and well-acted game of cat and mouse, but the psychological thriller continually ups the ante to the point where you start to wonder who's the cat and who's the mouse."
True.
And I said at the end, I go, if Insomnia proves anything, because this was his first movie after Memento, it's that Christopher Nolan is just as good at telling stories moving forward as he is at telling them in reverse.
Yeah, good line, Mr.
Way to
Mantz.
go, bam.
And when Soderbergh visited the set of Insomnia, Al Pacino said, "One day in the very near future, I'm going to say I was proud to be on a Christopher Nolan film," because he knew he would be big. And he is.
And he is.
And now Mark Tordai, who's someone I love talking to on Twitter about movies, likes Insomnia, says the isolation of the small Alaskan town mixed with the midsummer's constant sunlight adds to the grit and psychological intensity of this twisted mystery thriller. This is an early, often overlooked masterpiece by Nolan that showed the world just what he could do. If you haven't seen Insomnia, it's worth losing sleep over.
Just
I
like you
that
did.
line, just like I did. And that's the interesting thing. It's all in daylight, but it's still creepy.
It's still creepy, right? Yeah, and the fox scene's great. Joshua Lozano says about Insomnia, "I honestly think that my favorite film of his is Insomnia. It's got a great cast. Nolan and Pfister really take advantage of the locations of Alaska, makes it look really creepy. Robin Williams especially does a very chilling turn as Walter Finch, and the chemistry between him and Al Pacino is just dynamite. Like the scene on the ferry.
Oh, the ferry.
That was almost my right stuff.
And with the recorder.
Oh, yeah.
My wild card.
My wild card. It does give you this insane feeling that you are in Dormer's shoes, as you aren't entirely sure what is really happening and what isn't brought on by his lack of sleep. I call this Fargo's darker cousin, and I think it fits."
Oh, that's an interesting. I like that.
Very good take,
That
yes.
works. One thing about Christopher Nolan's movies is that he has great characters. So the player, of course, we have to start with the Joker, one of the best movie villains, and I would say the best comic book based villain I've ever seen on screen. What Heath Ledger brought to that role, all those little nuances, the tongue and the way he moves, and he says things in such an unexpected way.
Like when Harvey Dent is in the hospital and he sits down and he goes, "Hi."
Yeah. Hi.
Oh my God, it's just like one word just captures everything about that character.
Yeah.
And don't you remember when it was first announced that Heath Ledger was going to play the Joker? Everyone on the internet was like,
from 10 Things I Hate About You.
they were like, "What? Sacrilege! Oh my God, this is going to be awful."
No one can replace Nicholson.
And he was as different from Nicholson as you could possibly get. Listen, Nicholson's character fell into a big vat of acid, and that's how he became the Joker. But what's great about Heath Ledger's Joker, he doesn't have any superpowers. He's just a sociopath, just like Batman.
Yes.
Fortunately, Batman's on our side.
Batman's on your side. And the way that he has no rules and he has no real reason. He doesn't want money. He just wants to watch the world burn.
Well, another character that wanted to do just that. Listen, it would have been really, really hard
I'm ready.
to top. Go ahead, do it.
Bane!
Bane! It's Bane! Bane is also one of our great characters because Bane was terrifying.
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy.
He's incredible. He's great at doing the brains and the brawn, and he was strong as Bane.
And listen, Bane is a terrifying character. He gained 30 pounds for the role, Tom Hardy, and he also took the role without reading a script, which I guess kind of happens a lot when you're working with a director like Christopher Nolan. But to be able to follow the Joker, an Oscar-winning performance, with yet another character that is, in a lot of ways, even more terrifying, was a major, major coup. And then, of course, we have to give a big shout out to a movie that we like a lot,
Yes.
The Prestige.
The Prestige.
Robert Angier, played by Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman.
This movie came out in 2007. I know you like this movie a lot. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I do.
We just like these other movies better.
Slightly better, but it doesn't mean it's a bad movie. I really enjoy it, and I know Steve Zissou from Schmoville Zissou also enjoys it. I found out his name is Justin.
Is it?
Yeah.
Ooh, we got you, Steve.
We're on to you.
We got you.
Steve says, a story of dedication and obsession, which is very true, and that's something that you see in Hugh Jackman's character. This film has so much value, you can literally rewatch it and notice all of the great foreshadowing in the performances right in front of your face. Borden did not know which knot he tied every single time Angier asked. It was his brother that tied the knot. I like how you see Borden as a liar the first viewing, but then you realize he was telling the truth. This film was ahead of its time and suffered from the release of The Illusionist months earlier. That is true.
That is true.
They seemed similar.
They were very similar. And I remember The Illusionist being more of a love story, and I think that's why I liked The Illusionist more at the time.
Yep.
But I actually wrote in my original review back in 2007 where The Illusionist was a whimsical love story that was told in chronological order. The Prestige is a psychological battle of wits that's told in a much more complex, non-linear format. It's never dull. It'll keep you on your toes, and it's bound to stimulate conversation in an effort to figure it all out. And really, how often can you say that about a Hollywood movie these days?
Only when Nolan's involved.
Only when Nolan is involved.
Let's talk about the brackets that were run this week on our Facebook page.
Yes.
Profiles with Malone and Mantz and the Schmoes Know Network. You should all be liking it and participating. It's so much fun. Big thanks to Cameron Wallace and Cole Healy, who ran these brackets and did the great pictures that went along with them. So they talked about the best scenes in Nolan films. The semi-finals were between the hospital scene in The Dark Knight versus the hallway scene in Inception, which was almost my right stuff.
Whoa.
That was incredible. Then it came down to, I think the hallway won that one. Then the next one was the ending of Prestige versus the Joker's interrogation. The Joker's interrogation won that one. So the championship was the Joker's interrogation versus the hallway from Inception. The winner was
Inception?
the Joker.
Wow. Nice.
By one vote. So it was very, very, very close.
And boy, I have to say that of all the episodes of Profiles we've done where the profilers go on and they do these brackets and they rank and they weigh in on their favorite movies and everything like that, I've never seen as much activity on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
Profiles with Malone and Mantz on the
Schmoes
Schmoes Know
Know
Network.
Network.
Give it a like and join in on the fun
Yeah,
as
it's
they
great.
did with Nolan.
Everyone was so excited about Christopher Nolan. We kept getting tweets, when are you going to do Christopher Nolan? We're like, yes, we want to do
Yes.
it with Interstellar, because we were hoping we would get to actually talk to him.
And we did. We did.
But a lot of people were saying that Christopher Nolan was one of the first filmmakers that got them interested in the art of filmmaking. I think that's so special, because
That's
a lot
awesome.
of people would have just wanted to see a Batman movie and then discovered Nolan through that and then gone back and watched his other films and
Like
then
that.
go and see his new films. I think that's fantastic.
That's fantastic. What's also fantastic is just how great Profiles is taken off. And we love doing this.
Yes.
We really, really do.
the best.
But we just really need the help of everyone watching and listening. We want to do this week after week. We have so many people we want to get to.
Yeah.
But we need everyone's help to subscribe.
Yes, please.
And rate and review us
On
on
iTunes.
iTunes. Absolutely stop what you're doing. Put the show on pause. Go to to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review Profiles. Also subscribe to us on YouTube.
Yeah, youtube.com/Schmoes Network. Subscribe to us there. You'll see all the great shows from the network. And some pretty cool things have happened with Profiles recently. Tarantino's people wrote about it on his Facebook page for the Tarantino episode. They said, go and watch this. I like to think it was Tarantino himself, but it probably wasn't. And then on the Hitchcock page, which definitely wasn't Hitchcock himself, they wrote about Profiles too. And I just love it. It's taking off.
It's really taking off.
Slowly but surely.
Wait till you see what we have in store for you later in the show today. But without spoiling anything, what do you say we get into Fast Five number 3?
Okay, so what am I doing? Oh, I'm chasing this guy. No, he's chasing me.
Memento. Great line.
What a movie. Again, this movie came out March 16, 2001, played at Sundance, nominated for 2 Academy Awards. Boy, are they well deserved. Original screenplay, very original, and editing. Brilliant editing, shot in 25 days, cost $4.5 million to make.
This is the movie that got Nolan Hollywood attention. And it, boy, did it. From then.
Everyone got into this movie.
Such a smart film, as we said before, very inventive with its structure, the way the color scenes are reverse chronological order, black and white scenes are forward, and then they meet at the end and it comes together like a Polaroid. It's based on a short story by Nolan's brother called Memento Mori, but they discussed this story on a road trip between Chicago and Hollywood and decided to make it. Brad Pitt was really interested. He loved the script. He wanted to be involved but couldn't because of scheduling conflicts, so they decided to go with someone a little less known, and that was Guy Pearce. Who is wonderful in this role.
Yeah.
The way it's structured makes you so confused, and you can't trust him either. You can't trust Guy Pearce's character. It's perfect the way it's set out.
The way it's set out, especially the reverse scenes, the color scenes, because those are told in reverse.
Yeah.
Yet the movie still feels, even in those color scenes, like it is moving forward with a forward-moving narrative.
Yeah,
and
it's like you remember where you are. You don't lose track too much.
And the middle of the
Keeps you
story...
working.
The middle of the story is the end of the film.
But
the middle ends the film while also serving as the midpoint for the story. It's really just mind-blowing. And actually, I know we talked about this when we were doing our warm-up, but I wrote back in 2001, Jesus, 13 years ago, director Christopher Nolan combines elements of Pulp Fiction, and The Limey. Remember The Limey? Steven Soderbergh? To deliver an ingenious, revolutionary suspense thriller that takes film noir to a whole new level.
It is a film noir.
It is definitely, instead of wondering what's going to happen, you're left wondering, how did that happen?
Yeah, it is like Pulp Fiction in that it's a film that you walk out going, wow, that was clever.
Really clever.
You didn't realize you could do that with film.
It's a riveting, innovative, and challenging murder mystery in reverse that has an ending, or is it a beginning so chilling that it will haunt you for days?
How many reviews do you think you've written in your life?
Over 1,000.
Wow!
Yeah,
that's amazing.
15 years.
Oh, that's so cool. So with Memento, something interesting was that Emma Thomas, who is now Nolan's wife, she sold it to Newmarket. Soderbergh loved it. He saw an early screening. He talked it up in interviews. He tried to get a distributor on board. No one would touch it. So Newmarket decided, well, we'll distribute it ourselves. Miramax passed on it, the Weinsteins. You think it would be perfect for Miramax at that time.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But then later on, they tried to buy it because they realized how good it was. They couldn't buy it, and Newmarket made a lot of money because it became a cult hit. Hard to find, though, these days, as we discovered.
Oh, yes.
Not on iTunes, not on Netflix, not on Amazon. It was on Netflix a while ago, but Amazon, you have to go and get the DVD.
Thank God for Amoeba Records. I got home from New York after a trip to see my dad and went straight to Amoeba, watched it last night, and here we are today talking about Memento.
It. Such an impressive film.
Also talking about it is our #1 profiler, George McGann.
Smart guy.
Smart guy. Memento is my favorite Nolan film, and in my opinion, his best. The film takes noir level to a pretty... it takes the noir genre and pretty much flips it in every way. Nolan's use of black and white wasn't a stylistic choice. It was to serve the film. That being said, the black and white is perfect for the noir. I think what I love most about Memento is the writing. Literally everything in the film is connected in one way or another. Side note, Nolan clearly took what he learned on Following, his first movie, and implemented it on Memento. The two films are very much character study companion pieces.
I agree. And Rachel Cushing, who I actually got to meet at Stanley's Kamikaze on the
Yay.
weekend, and she was so delightful. I really enjoyed talking to her. She says, Memento is the type of film I wish more directors would make. It was pure risk. Risk in style, risk in story, risk in casting. Only somewhat known actors in Guy Pearce and Carrie-Anne Moss. Yes. It was brilliant. But boy, did the risk pay off. It is a smart movie, one that requires us to pay attention to every detail while trying to follow the non-linear storyline, and delivers one of the best OMG moments at the end, as everything literally comes into focus in one spectacular scene. You do not know how this film's going to end when you watch it.
No
and
idea.
It blew my mind.
It's a mind-blowing film. Rachel Cushing, she's just so great. She should be like a film critic, like professionally.
She says she's getting more into film writing after watching a lot of profiles, and that makes me so happy.
Hooray!
Yay!
Well, now, Alicia, it is your favorite part of Profiles. The part of Profiles, Alicia, she lives for this. She actually took me aside and said, Mantz, I love quiz show more than anything about Profiles. Of course, I'm totally lying. She did not say that. So yes, for our quiz, where we like to quiz each other, my question for you is this. When Inception was shipped out to theaters, what was the name that it was shipped out under?
Oh, I don't know this.
Was it A, Mind Games? Was it B, Subconscious? Was it C, Extraction? Or was it D, Hourglass?
Oh, it could be any of those.
Could be, right?
Extraction?
D, Hourglass.
Hourglass.
That was tough.
That was tough. Okay, well, one for you.
Okay.
How many movies has Michael Caine starred in from Nolan? Is it A4, B6, C7? How many of his 8 movies?
I'm going to say 6.
Correct!
6, yes! Way to go, Michael Caine.
Michael Caine.
Time for your Michael Caine impression again.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
Oh, that's pretty good!
She's only 16. She's only 16.
I'm not going to even try. I'm not even going to try. I would rather talk about...
Fast 5 number 2, which
We're
is...
asleep. Our mind can do almost anything.
Inception. Mind Blown, released July 16, 2010. Screenplay by Christopher Nolan. And this is the type of screenplay that is so, or the movie itself is so detailed and intricate that it could only be, yes, that was my phone. It could only be directed by its screenwriter, because there are so many details and so many levels. 3 of them, maybe 4.
Yes, this is what I love about Inception, is that there are so many debates raging about it. It's the type of movie that as soon as you finish it, you're like, hang on, what did you think? Did you think it was a dream? Did you think it was real life? Does it matter? I love the debate. It's part science fiction, part a heist film as well. Probably the most debated out of all of his movies. You can look at it in several ways. So you can say, is it all a dream? You never see the top fall over at the end, so he could still be asleep. But then again, that wasn't even his totem. That was Mal's totem.
Oh,
remember, it was in the safe in her little dollhouse?
Right.
His totem, Cobb's totem, was apparently his wedding ring, and then at the end he's not wearing it, which apparently means that it's real life. I don't know. The thing that Nolan says about the ending, he says he's been asked this so many times, but he says it doesn't matter.
Of course
because
not.
the thing that matters is that he is looking at his children. He's not even looking at the top. And that's something that Nolan does really well. These high, complex concepts, but the grounding is emotional, and Cobb is the emotional center.
This was nominated for 8 Academy Awards. It won for cinematography, sound mixing, sound editing, and visual effects. It's complex, challenging, mind-blowing film. It's like a puzzle. So much so that when Ellen Page says one line of dialogue into the movie about halfway through the film, that just really, she said what everyone else was thinking. She goes, wait, whose subconscious are we going into exactly?
Yeah.
Because the first time you see this movie, it is confusing.
So confusing.
So everybody in the theater laughed at that moment because she was so right on. She's like, wait, what's happening now?
What's happening? I also love the theory that it is all about movie making. that each of the characters are like a different person in the production line. So you've got Cobb, who's the director, Adriani is the writer, Eames is the art director, Sato is the producer, Fisher is the audience, and then a film-going experience is like a dream. You add your own subconscious to it, and the flickering lights and the dreamlike world that he created. I find that interesting, but some of these scenes are just incredible. The hallway scene we mentioned before. The hallway scene is amazing. The slow motion of the van going off into the water. The kick.
It takes forever. It takes forever. And
how time works in different layers of the dream. One it's faster, one it's slower. He loves using time and messing with our brains.
Well, in my original review way back in 2010, I actually said that the brilliance of Inception lies in its structure. Where Memento used a forward-flowing narrative to tell a story in reverse, Inception goes from one layer to the next, and like a house of cards, the strength of the next layer is wholly dependent upon the stability of the previous one. It also brings to mind the stunning visual splendor of 1999's The Matrix.
It does seem similar to The Matrix. Leonardo DiCaprio also compared this to 8.5, which is probably a reference to the movie making meta aspect of it. Nolan wanted to work with DiCaprio for years, finally got to on this movie, and they sat down and talked through the script for a long, long time, because again, Cobb has to be the emotional center of it for the high concepts to actually work.
And one last bit of trivia on this film, that the thieves, the extractors, their names spell out dreams. You got Dom, Robert, Eames, Arthur, Mal, and Sato. It spells dreams. Just another bit of interesting trivia for this fascinating, incredible movie that I could watch again in 30 years and probably still get something new out of it.
That's what we love. We love when a film makes you think about things and delve into it and come up with these crazy theories and look too closely into it.
And Nolan always said that one of his favorite movies of all time was 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is a movie that decades after you first see it, you're still getting stuff out of it.
Exactly.
So he's getting good influence.
Well, Michael Chapman loves Inception, says that Memento is a fascinating non-linear story, fully embracing the differences it has amongst other mystery thrillers. Oh no, this one's all about Memento, so never mind.
Oh, jeez. Well, then let's talk about...
but he likes Memento.
Brock Cheek.
Likes Memento.
Good, nice cut and paste job I did there. Brock Cheek goes, at this point, I've seen Inception 50 times, and every time I'm still picking up on different pieces of the puzzle.
True.
I've never devoted so much brain power to deciphering a movie as I did with Inception, and I love it. I can't wait to see where Nolan's career trajectory continues to take him.
Well, let's talk about another film that uses a lot of brain power. Our special bonus round movie is...
You're the best pilot we ever had. Get out there and save the world.
Michael Caine again.
Interstellar. This is Nolan's 9th feature film, released on November 5th, 2014 on IMAX 70mm, November 7th everywhere else. Ambitious, mind-blowing, very entertaining, a sublime and beautiful film with superb performances.
This will divide audiences, and it already has started to, because it is extremely ambitious. Some very complex science happening in this movie, but it looks amazing. He's really outdone himself in terms of the visuals, and I was just blown away by the spectacle of it all.
Sure.
We sat there afterwards and we
looked
said,
at each other and said, wow.
I love how optimistic it is. I like how it's all about looking up in wonder at the sky and what humankind can do. And then we said, and you'll hear that soon, that we looked around the cinema and everyone was doing the same thing, looking up at the cinema screen in awe. And Nolan, no matter what you think of this film, you can't deny that it is incredibly unique these days to make a $165 million original concept.
Exactly.
And one that will blow your mind in terms of the look, and one that you have to see in the movies. You can't see it on your little iPhone screen.
Now, this is a movie with a capital M, and now that brings us to our moment of truth here on Profiles.
Exciting.
Very, very exciting. Once again, we got to sit down and talk with Christopher Nolan at the press day for Interstellar.
They brought in an extra chair.
They redid the lighting.
He was waiting off to the side while they redid the lighting. Then they rejigged the microphones.
Just for our show. And listen, Alicia, you and I have interviewed so many celebrities and filmmakers over the years, but this was special because the man himself, Christopher Nolan, sat down to talk with us for our show Profiles.
About his career.
About his career. So let's roll it.
The conversation.
Christopher Nolan, thank you so much for joining us on Profiles. Our show is dedicated to your career.
Well, thank you. A great honor.
Well, congratulations on Interstellar. It's such an amazing movie, a huge movie in scope, but would you say it's also really personal?
It certainly intends to be. I mean, what drew me to the project originally was the relationship between a father and his children at the heart of the story. I loved the idea of taking that relationship and testing it in a cosmic way and contrasting those human emotions and human scale problems with this greater endeavor.
Well, we know that Stanley Kubrick is a big influence on you, especially 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
It's such a grand film, and we just felt like there was so much of that grandness in Interstellar. How did you capture that, and how daunting was it to capture that?
It was, it was daunting to think of what Kubrick had done with 2001, but inspirational at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, when we riffed on a lot of his techniques on Inception, for example, with the zero-G sequences, and that was fun because we were sort of completely repurposing something. But actually getting into the same arena as a great masterpiece like that, that's very daunting. But the inspiration, remembering what it was like to sit, I was 7 years old when I saw it with my father in Leicester Square, so sit there watching this huge image on screen and be transported into, a universe, a corner of the universe you never could have even imagined. I remember what that feeling was, and that was inspiring to try and give somebody that feeling now today.
I think you did, because we were looking around during the screening and everyone's faces were like,
And the jaws were hanging
just
open.
in awe.
That's great.
But when it came to your approach on Interstellar, would you say it was any different to your approach on maybe your earlier films like Memento?
I mean, it's a little difficult to analyze. There was one sense in which it was different, which is when we came to finish the visual effects and the editing and everything, I realized that the technique I'd most been using to inspire excitement or in an audience is really to see it through the character's eyes, whatever it is, if it's, Batman's, Batmobile or something, you cut to a character and you see their reaction, and that's how you get the audience to feel a particular thing. But when it comes to this subject matter, you have to go beyond that, and you have to actually present a set of imagery that directly affects the audience, not through another character. And that was an interesting lesson to learn. And when I look back at a great film like 2001, you see that's the difference. Is that is a film that is directly affecting you with a sense of wonder and a sense of awe with its own imagery, not just viewing it through other characters. Interstellar tries to do both.
But when you look at your career, the trajectory of your career, as your films have gotten bigger, grander, more ambitious, this sense all the way through of just continuing to challenge the audience, challenge their intelligence, make them think, even on a trilogy like the Dark Knight trilogy. How important is that to you to maintain that sense where you're really entertaining but also challenging the moviegoer?
I don't really think of it so much as challenging the moviegoer. I think of it as challenging myself and ourselves as filmmakers to try and guide the audience through something that is complex or otherworldly or new in some way to them. I mean, that's really the fun of making a film. And I love making a film for a wide audience, and I have a lot of faith in the audience. I view myself as part of the audience, and I want to try and respect the audience's intelligence. For me, it's clear that if the emotion of the story is clear, if the stakes of the story are clear, and the excitement of things is there, and the entertainment's there, people will follow you anywhere.
Well, we're film geeks.
Huge.
So I love your commitment to film itself. Did you always want to shoot Interstellar on film and with IMAX cameras?
Oh yeah, I mean, I only shoot on film, and that's my great love. As far as using IMAX cameras go, I've used them several times before with great success technically, and I really enjoy that format. It seemed absolutely perfectly suited to this kind of story with the kind of imagery we knew we wanted to be dealing with. So we threw the cameras in as much as we could and really tried to fill that great canvas.
Well, the last question is that throughout Interstellar, there's this pervading sense of optimism, a pervading sense of idealism that made me think about the right stuff. And how did you capture that for a film like Interstellar, which is just so grand and there's so much at stake?
Well, partly by watching the right stuff. I screened Philip Kaufman's film for the whole cast and crew, or for the crew and the visual effects guys and everybody, because what they did, I mean, it's a true story, and it's such a wonderful era of tremendous optimism and great exploration and spirit, and the title itself says the right stuff. So we really did want to capture that, and we looked at the techniques they'd employed, because that film is technically extremely well made. And we really looked at it and said, okay, if they could do that in 1983, we don't have any excuse for not pushing it as hard as we can in that direction, and trying to create as real an environment for the audience to experience, for the actors to experience while we're filming it, as possible.
Well, thank you so much
for joining us on Profiles. It's a real honor. It's a real thrill to talk with you.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yes! We did it!
That was awesome!
That was awesome. Everything is awesome.
Yes.
Big thanks to Christopher Nolan and, of course, to Paramount Pictures for making sure we got to do a sit-down interview with Christopher Nolan for
great.
Profiles. What an honor. What a thrill.
He's such a nice guy. He's such a humble guy. He has very dry wit about him. The next day, I went in to do some other interviews for Australia, and he was like, "Where's your partner in crime?" I was like, "I know, I'm by myself now."
Aw. Well, okay, let's move on, shall we?
Yes, well, actually, before we move on to our last one, I just wanted to quickly sum up. People have been tweeting me going, what's the deal with IMAX 70mm? Why do I have to see Interstellar in that way? Why would you say film is better than digital, or it works for this movie in particular? Because I'd say like digital's good for something like Nightcrawler, that's gritty.
Yeah, I totally agree.
budget.
I mean, for certain films, especially real low-budget films where filmmakers are just trying to shoot movies with little HDV cameras, sure, go for it. But for this kind of film, you want to see it on the biggest screen possible, and you want to see it in the most detailed way possible, and that's what 70mm is. It's so rare.
The bigger the millimeter, the sharper the quality.
I mean,
so 8mm grainy, 70mm amazing.
I'll never forget the first time I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey in 70mm. After I'd seen it on the big screen before, of course on home video a million times, but watching it in 70mm on the big screen, I was watching it literally for the first time. The level of detail, and I remember when we were watching Interstellar at the Chinese theater on their brand new screen with a brand new sound system in 70mm. We just looked at each other and we're just like, wow, can you believe this? It's gorgeous.
Awesome.
And it is a fully immersive experience. Even when I saw Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol in IMAX, the scene when Tom Cruise steps out on the building.
That still makes me tingle.
I literally instinctively just grabbed a hold of my chair because I felt like I was going to fall.
Yes.
And nothing else does that. No other.
It's incredible.
If you can see it in 70mm, go out of your way to do so. This is a movie that takes full advantage of the medium, and I hate to say it, but it might be one of the last times a movie will be made for 70mm.
Drive as far as you have to see it in 70mm.
Absolutely.
It is worth it. Now let's get to our Fast Five.
Number one, which is...
It's the hero Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs right now.
The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight. This is the one. Released July 18th, 2008. Nominated for 8 Academy Awards. Won 2 for sound editing and for supporting actor Heath Ledger. The first time a comic book movie ever won an acting award, and it was one of 32 acting awards Ledger won that year after he had passed away. It cost $185 million to make, grossed $1 billion worldwide. The first comic book-based movie to do so, and...
They're one of the smartest films ever to make
more than $1 billion.
Because you look at the $1 billion, you're like Transformers 4,
Pirates of the Caribbean
Pirates
5, whatever.
5, but The Dark Knight was so well written, really well structured. The pacing was brilliant. Of course, we talked about the villain. The Joker is a big reason why this works. But this film completely, Batman Begins started the elevation of the superhero genre. Dark Knight really just surpassed it again. It's such a well-made movie, serious tone, never silly, and with real stakes. Like when Rachel Dawes, now played by Maggie Gyllenhaal, who I think is better
Much
choice.
better.
She's very strong, very sexy. My future sister-in-law.
Oh, that's right.
When her character is killed off and in such a brutal way, it's unexpected, and that shows just anything can happen in this world. The action scenes too. We talked about the truck scene. Blows my mind.
Well, Batman Begins, the Scarecrow had a supernatural quality to him, but everything about The Dark Knight was grounded in reality. This movie really was a game changer for the genre. It's an epic crime drama. It's a mob movie. It's The Godfather.
It is a mob movie.
It's a mob movie. It's like The Godfather or The Goodfellas of comic book based movies. And another movie that it reminded me a lot of was the movie Heat. With Al Pacino and Robert De Niro.
Because the two need each other.
They need each other. And there's a scene in Heat when Pacino and De Niro are sitting across from each other at Kate Manalini's, and he's going like, you were going down.
Yeah.
But he also says, I'm only as good as who I'm going after. And you could say the same thing about Batman and the Joker in this movie. When they're sitting across from each other during the interrogation scene, that felt a lot like Heat. And when I was going back and doing some research on The Dark Knight, because Nolan likes to show his cast and crew films, for The Dark Knight, to prep his cast and crew, he showed them a few movies: Citizen Kane, Clockwork Orange, Black Sunday, and once you know it, he showed them Heat.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go.
There you go. Well, I love also the political angle with, as we just played that clip, he's the hero that the city needs, but not the one that, or it deserves, not the one it needs right now. The idea of making Harvey Dent, who became Two-Face, the idea of making him the symbol of hope, which then we see in The Dark Knight Rises, and the way Harvey Dent was based on Robert F. Kennedy. I also love how, it's a little bit of trivia, but in the hospital scenes when the Joker is dressed up as the nurse, his name tag reads Matilda, and that's the name of his daughter. I think that's really sweet. Also, Heath Ledger directed all the little videos that you see the Joker do when they have the guy upside down. So he actually filmed that himself. I think that's really smart. The opening scene, if you want to talk about IMAX, I saw that in IMAX, and when it comes over the buildings, I felt like I was going to fall off. The robbery and then the way the Joker reveals himself. Everything about this film is so well thought out.
Well, the robbery scene, now that I think about it, reminds me a lot of the robbery scene at the end of Heat.
Yeah.
And in my original review from 2008, I said that for The Dark Knight, the existential, psychological, intelligent approach of The Dark Knight makes it less of a superhero movie and more of an epic crime drama that puts Christopher Nolan in the same league as Brian De Palma, Martin Scorsese, and Michael Mann.
You're smart.
Way to go.
Someone else who's super smart is Tyler Myers.
Yes.
And it was his birthday the other day. So
happy birthday, Tyler Myers.
He says, to say that I love The Dark Knight would be a total understatement. I absolutely adore the way that Nolan flipped the superhero genre around and gave it a gritty and realistic kick to it. The writing and direction was simply breathtaking, and the score, yes, the score was haunting yet brilliant. But the reason The Dark Knight holds a special place in my heart is because it was the movie that made me the film geek I am today, and I will never forget that experience watching the film for the first time with my dad in a crowded room on Saturday, July 19, 2008, in brackets, that's for you, Mantz.
Thank you, Tyler. Hashtag Film Geek.
Film Geek.
Sam Blackburn says about The Dark Knight, with great direction, thought-provoking dialogue, well-placed action, great acting, along with a chilling performance by Heath Ledger, The Dark Knight showed that comic book movies can be serious films and not just something made for kids. The Dark Knight set the gold standard for comic book movies, and since then, minus one or two missteps here and there, comic book movies have just been getting better and better.
And that brings us to the end of Profiles, which just keeps getting better and better. All about Christopher Nolan. If you like what you see here, make sure you rate and review and subscribe to us on iTunes, as well as subscribe to us on youtube.com/Schmoesno podcast. Also follow us on Facebook, Profiles with Malone and Mantz and the Schmoesno Network, and follow me on Twitter at Alicia Malone.
Follow me on Twitter at Movie Mantz.
And then follow our fan Red Lead Twitter at ProfilesSK, and let's recap our
Fast Five. Coming in at number 5 was The Dark Knight Rises. Number 4 is Insomnia. Number 3 is Memento. Number 2, Inception. Number 1, The Dark Knight.
We are done.
We are done
Who
with
do
our
we have
special
next
show.
week?
Big mistake. Big. Huge. I have to go shopping now.
Julia Roberts! Yes, the biggest actress on the face of the earth.
She's
cannot
done
wait.
rom-coms. She's done
Dramas.
dramas.
She's
She's
done
done
comedies.
She's awesome.
She is Julia Roberts, and she is our next profile. Again, make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes. Rate and review us. We need those so we can keep doing it. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
From producers Christian Harloff, Mark Ellis, and the entire Schmoes Know Network crew, we would like to thank you for listening to Profiles with Alicia Malone and Scott Mantz. Special thanks to Kevin Undergaro and Maria Badunas, the author of Every Girl's Guide to Diet and Fitness, in stores now. Be sure to subscribe to Profiles on iTunes and rate and review the show. To get other Schmoes Know Network episodes, movie news, and join the conversation, be sure to visit schmoesknow.com. I'm the Pit Boss, and this has been a presentation of the Schmoes Know Network.